Hello, Emmy. I'm going to walk you out through the garden here. This is a first row of the first planting of onions. You can see that I've been cutting grass around them, trying to expose them. I got this far, ran out of line, but walking on up here, you can see how there are, now there's 2 rows here, and somehow I got to get to that row back there. That's second planting. Some of this row has been picked, but it's still hard to find the onions, especially when you're weed whacking. See, because some of the onion looks a lot like some of the grass. So that's what I'm trying to do right now. Here's part of the second planting. That's a medium-sized onion. These are the tomatoes. Let me walk you along here, show you some tomatoes maybe. We can see any. I don't know what's wrong with this plant, why he's turning yellow, but we got tomatoes here. This one here is just almost covered with tomatoes, and it looks like there's a couple of red ones in there, probably ready to be picked. This plant too is also just, whoops, broke him, just covered with tomatoes in there. Most of them still green, but really, some of them really close. This plant, I don't know what it is, but it looks like it's a cherry tomato variety. I don't know what he's doing here. Not supposed to be there. This plant also has lots of tomatoes. You can see them. Many of them are small. Most of them are still green. I don't know if they're going to get any bigger or what. Here's a couple of that are just about ready. This plant also, lots of tomatoes, and I see some redness in there. Today's Thursday, going to pick tomorrow again. There's tomatoes turning red in here, lots of them. But you can see I got quite a few tomatoes. There's a nice red tomato. He's ready. I'll pick him. But I don't know how well the camera is picking these up, but there's lots of tomatoes here. Nice tomatoes down there. There's another rat plant. A lot of green, just a few tomatoes. Here's a plant, got no tomatoes on it. Not one, and not very many flowers. Walking on down, another plant with no tomatoes, just a couple on this plant. I don't see no tomatoes on this plant. Oh yeah, there's one right there, little bitty one. And it looks like there might be a couple on the other side. But it's really unusual. Some of these plants are just covered with tomatoes, and some of them have none. I don't know what's wrong with these 2 guys either. They're getting the same amount of water, same amount of food as all the rest of them. But you can see that some of these plants are just covered with tomatoes. There's a lot of them back in there. I hope they get bigger. And that brings us on down to this end. This is where the larger variety of tomato is planted. These are called big beefs or big beef steaks. You can see that these are really nice sized tomatoes. Here's one that looks like he's just about ready, probably will be tomorrow. Lots of tomatoes in here. This one, all the tomatoes are underneath, but there's a lot of tomatoes here. Back in here too, lots of tomatoes hanging. Now we get into the beef steak type tomatoes. These are really unusually shaped. Some of them, a lot of them have this blossom end problem. I gave them some calcium last night before I watered them, so hopefully we'll get to stop that. But there's some big tomatoes here. This one is really big, and there's some back in here too that are pretty good size. Here's a nice big one. He's ready to pick. He'll get picked tomorrow. Got some big tomatoes here. I hope they all clean up. These also have problems on the bottom, but they're good tomatoes. And they're on the other side of the fence. This is where the corn was. I mowed this all out yesterday or the day before, I forget which. But looking down through the tomatoes there, you can see a lot of tomatoes. So, okay, I'm going to go back to work trying to get this grass out of these onions. So, you have a good evening, baby. Sleep well. I love you.